Hello and welcome. I'm Silvia Pavoni, economics editor of The Banker, and I'm in Buenos Aires for the G20 meeting of the Institute of International Finance, now talking to David Malpass, the US undersecretary at the Treasury for International Affairs. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Silvia. Nice to see you.
So I know that China is top of your agenda. You've just spoken at the audience here at the IAF G20. You define China as a non-market economy. Its terms when lending to Latin America have not particularly been transparent, and many would agree with you. But given the current situation, given talks around trade wars, trade barriers being introduced, tariffs, walls being built, is the US a more preferable trade partner for Latin America?
Yes, it is. And I began my remarks today talking about the engagement of the U.S. with Latin America. So we have an agenda or an initiative, America Crece, that is very engaged with Latin America and with the positive side of growth, where the U.S. can be involved in investment with Latin America, with exports to Latin America, with financing that's transparent and beneficial for the people of Latin America. So my concern about China is that as they've moved away from market orientation, it ends up not working for the people that they're lending to or that they're guiding the projects into. So a lot of times China will come to a country, let's say in Latin America, and say this project would be good for you. And they're talking with the government of a country. And so the financing is non-transparent. The choice of projects is non-transparent. China is using subsidized financing, and so the people of the country don't end up with the benefits that they should. So I think the public in Latin America should be looking for projects and for engagement with the world that's beneficial to their incomes, to their jobs, and the United States provides that better than China.
So the US would look at these long-term finances in a different way, but then the headlines are not particularly matching perhaps what the US could do. So are we going to see a convergence between the headlines and what the US can actually do with the region?
Certainly the U.S. involvement with the region also mirrors the policies within the region. So there's two sides of this. If there's non-transparent activity going on, the country itself has to find ways to have a legal structure that's open to strong market-based investment. So we are working with, and that's part of our energy initiative, is to work with Latin America to find frameworks that work for U.S. companies to be engaged in positive projects. So countries often can go ahead and do a project, but it ends up being a non-transparent project that benefits the governments of China and the Latin country, but not necessarily the people. And so we're looking for a different kind of project that works for more people.
Right, okay. So let's talk about a country where China really has had a big influence financially, which is Venezuela. So China has its official line, which is the one of not particularly wanting to interfere with domestic affairs. The US has taken a strong position, sanctioning both Venezuela and individuals, along with other countries, yet things haven't changed in Venezuela. What are the next steps?
Yes, and to your point, Venezuela is China's biggest investment in Latin America. Look how badly that's gone. And from Venezuela's standpoint, their biggest lender is China. And so that hasn't worked either way in that relationship. So what we would like to see is Venezuela holding free and fair elections in a way that will benefit the people of Venezuela. So our policy is to try to stop the flow of the plundering of Venezuela by its leaders. So they sell off things at cents on the dollar for their own benefit in a way that will end up hurting the Venezuelan people. So we want to cut off that kind of funding flow and preserve assets for the people of Venezuela once they become free.
So things haven't changed so much despite the sanctions. So what else could the states and the international community do to change things?
So as Venezuela becomes more isolated within itself, it is harder for the Maduro regime to extract money from Venezuelan
assets. So it's a matter of time, essentially.
And so time is passing, and it's harder and harder for Maduro to keep this up.
Okay.
He's excluded from the summit of the Americas, which will occur in Lima, Peru. Vice President Pence will be giving a speech this week on Venezuela and how to help, how to and the concerns that we have over the Maduro regime harming the economy and the social fabric of Venezuela.
Would it be conceivable for the U.S. to do something stronger? And
I expect more sanctions as those are helpful to the people of Venezuela, yes.
Okay. Lastly, I would like to ask you about energy. You mentioned it earlier. It's a sector where you see potential opportunities both in terms of trade and investment. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
There's been this remarkable change in the world, especially in the United States, in the ability to produce energy. So one of the things the U.S. can do is provide more energy to Latin America. We've shifted from being an energy importer to very nearly being an energy exporter, and it's a lot of it is natural gas, which is a good clean fuel and very much in need in Latin America. So part of it is finding ways to make that available. Then separately, Latin America itself has huge energy resources that are not being developed as much as they could. Mexico clearly has more energy resources, but throughout the region there are opportunities. In Argentina, there are huge shale oil, energy availability that the U.S. companies can help develop. But so one way we can facilitate that is with framework agreements that make it possible for that investment to occur. Chile also has ample resources, and so Secretary Mnuchin will be raising those topics in both Argentina and Chile on this trip.
So China has also invested in energy, in Brazil most notably. The U.S. maybe looking perhaps at buying companies or anyway developing projects, but there is perhaps another side that we should consider, which is the one that's unfortunately at the moment confidence within Latin America about the US and its leadership are very low. So perhaps selling the political capital needed to convince the population to allow such other big investments from abroad in key sectors may be much higher than in the past, would you say, when it comes to US more than China?
We're working hard to make clear to the people of Latin America that it's in U.S. interest for Latin America to do well, and so we will try very hard to be engaged in that. President Trump will be coming several times. Well, he's announced the trip to Peru and to Colombia that will be in April. By late in the year, I expect him to come to Argentina for the G20 leaders summit. Secretary Mnuchin will be coming multiple times to the region. And so there is a robust engagement that the people of Latin America should recognize expresses the goodwill of the United States and of President Trump. We would like nothing better than to see people in Latin America benefiting as U.S. workers benefit from faster growth.
Undersecretary Malpass, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you, Silvia.